Hi, everyone. I'm Tyler Foggatt, a senior editor at The New Yorker, and on behalf of the magazine, I am thrilled to welcome you all to the 26th Annual New Yorker Festival. I'm thrilled to be on stage this morning with the unbelievably impressive Ken Jennings. There are many adjectives I could use, but impressive is what I went with.
That works for anybody. You can get a war criminal up here and say, wow, it's really
impressive what he pulled off. I could not be more excited personally.
It's it's not, if you read The New Yorker and then suddenly you're on stage at the festival, it's a little bit analogous to watching Jeopardy and then suddenly going on the show. Like, The New Yorker has kind of risen up to surround me, like Tron, as I always dreamed it would.
Well, I actually want to start by talking about your origin story. So just for like a little background, I'm sure you guys all know this, but I love hearing about it. Like a lot of people here today, you grew up watching the syndicated version of Jeopardy hosted by Alex Trebek. But when that show debuted in 1984, Jennings was actually living in South Korea. His dad was an international lawyer who moved the family to Seoul when Jennings was in first grade. And so you were watching Jeopardy on the only English language TV channel available to you, which was the Armed Forces Korea Network. In 2004, when Ken was living in the States again and working as a software engineer, he fulfilled his lifelong dream of competing on Jeopardy. And he was historically good. He won a record 74 games in a row, earning more than $2.5 million. And for many years, he was America's, that does deserve applause. For many years, he was America's highest earning game show contestant, with various Jeopardy tournaments and other quiz shows bringing his total earnings to $5,796,214. Did I get that right?
No, please do not applaud the number. We live in a time of great inequality, and people who won $5 million on game shows should feel bad about that. And I do.
Well, there was a guy who several months ago was able to overtake your record by winning $5.8 million on Deal or No Deal
Deal or No
Island.
Deal.
Deal or No Deal Island.
If he's here tonight, I want to challenge you, sir. Jeopardy, mano y mano.
The New York Times described Ken back in 2004 as a throwback to the days when ordinary people got on television for doing well, not something shameless. He's been described by other publications as America's hardest working nerd and the Seabiscuit of geekdom. Matt Damon recently called him the Michael Jordan of trivia, which is a phrase that gets used about you a lot. And in 2020, of course, you won the greatest of all time tournament on Jeopardy, truly cementing your status as the GOAT. And of course, you succeeded Alex Trebek as the host of Jeopardy a few years ago. So, as one fan wrote online several months ago, how lucky are we that the perfect host for the show also just so happens to be the greatest to ever play the game?
That is a lovely sentiment, but I think you can hear how improbable it is. Like, what are the odds that someone would be good at playing Jeopardy but could also host it? And I think the answer is it's kind of analogous to, quarterbacks becoming sportscasters. Not all of them can do it, but the ones that can, they're not good at first, and I was not, but they know the game well enough to kind of keep their head above water until they figure out the broadcasting part of it, and then some of them are pretty good.
How does it help you? Does it ever get in the way?
Does it ever get in the way? I mean, the main thing about hosting Jeopardy is it moves so fast, you can't really, maybe talk shows are the same actually, you're not really putting on any kind of persona. Like, I really kind of feel like I'm just playing Jeopardy at speed with the players every night. I just don't have a buzzer. So I'm very into the game. I'm excited. I want to know what's going to happen next. I'm still trying to do all the things that Alex was so perfect at. Read every clue perfectly, because you're kind of narrating a whole audiobook every night. And set the stakes for the home audience so they have a little bit of play-by-play and color commentary. You're also the umpire. You're making difficult rulings even though you're backed up by the judges. So all that stuff is going on. But basically, I just kind of feel like I'm enjoying the game like I did when I was in my playing days. Now that sounds like an ex-quarterback. Well, when I was still on the Yankees, shut up, A-Rod.
So in terms of reading the clues, we'll talk more about this later, but obviously a big part of Jeopardy is buzzing in. Like, that's kind of the thing that determines who wins a game a lot of the time. And you and a lot of other contestants, used to study Alex Trebek's speech patterns. And I would assume that people are now studying your speech patterns so that they know exactly when to, use their signaling device. And so, I mean, do you have like a pressure to speak consistently? Because I'm like such a bad person, I would just like intentionally like introduce pauses to mess people up and stuff. I would not be able to help myself.
I wouldn't say, like when you say studying Alex Trebek's cadence, it makes it sound like I'm some kind of like Professor Henry Higgins weirdo with a gramophone or something.
Yeah.
But that's kind of true. Like just having listened to Alex read clues for decades, I feel like I did have a sixth sense of, here's what happens. The host starts reading a clue. The players are reading ahead because they can see the screen like you can at home. So the players are trying to get to the response before, you can read faster than the host can read out loud. So you're trying to get to the response before the host does. Do you take that second? Is it right? Does it make sense? Do you feel confident enough about it to buzz? And if you decide you're going to, then you're just laser focused on the end of the sentence. Last few syllables, beat, buzz. Because you can't buzz early, as some of you may know. Has anybody here ever been on Jeopardy? I bet there's a few. Front row. Any others? Congratulations. As you may know, you can't buzz as soon as you know it. You have to wait for the host to finish reading the clue. Then at that point, your buzzer is activated, and then you can buzz in. If you buzz in too early, you actually lock yourself out for a fraction of a second. So if you ever watch the show and somebody's like doing this every clue, I think people at home are often like, hey, Gary's buzzer is broken. No, it's just the adrenaline is making the players kind of buzz a little bit on the fast side. And so I am very aware that there's lights, by the way, that turn on the side of the game board to tell you when your buzzer is live, and some players will just wait for the lights. I was more of a, listen, I know Alex is reading so well that I'll just kind of time it to when I see the lights come on at home. Like when I see somebody buzzing at home, that's probably a pretty good proxy for the right millisecond to buzz. Because you can't be too early, you can't be too late. And I would just do that, and it turned out it worked. And today I think people are doing the same thing about my voice. So I do try to think about that. I read consistently. There's a lot of things that the reader of the clue can do to help the players get to the right answer. And that is what Jeopardy wants. We are never trying to confuse anybody, even though the clues are difficult. The show only works if the players have a fair shot at answering every clue, and that's what we are just hoping for. I hope do they know this? Do kids still read Silas Marner? We don't know, but a few times a month we try to find out on Jeopardy.
You do want a few triple stumpers though, right?
We're not against the occasional clue that nobody knows. It's a little moment to breathe in the game. It makes the audience feel smart. Do you guys love it when you know something that they don't know?
It's the best feeling in the world. I recently had it watching.
Sorry, heroine.
Yeah, I really just asked to do this event so that I could tell everyone about this moment I had. But it was, I was watching Jeopardy, and there was like an influencer category, and it was the hardest question, and it was this photo of Alex Earl appears on the screen, and I'm at home thinking that's obviously Alex Earl, and no one got it. And unfortunately, it was like the kind of thing where like I think my husband actually thought less of me for being able to get that answer.
In Quiz Bowl, we used to say there's no shame.
Yeah.
Like a right answer is a right answer. It doesn't matter how much you know about Love Island or whatever. Like that's, if it was points, points are points.
Do you guys talk about how lowbrow you want to get on a show where like half the questions are about Shakespeare? Like how do you balance that?
The writing of Jeopardy is basically the whole enterprise of the show. Like Jeopardy is the writer's show. If you guys like Gilmore Girls or West Wing or some very wordy show, Jeopardy has so many more syllables per second than any other TV show. It's the ultimate writer's show, and one of the things that goes into building the boards is balancing them. Categories are written by a big staff of writers, but they have colors. This one's an academic, blue for academic or whatever they are. This one's a wordplay category. This one's pop culture, and there is kind of a formula of we haven't had TV yet this week, and we need a second pop culture category this board. Are there ever specific questions about, is this person Jeopardy worthy? I think not so much. I think the idea is that we're as ecumenical as possible is best. So anybody can be a Jeopardy clue. Maybe you don't want Mr. Beast 3 times a week, but anybody, if the people know it, that's what Jeopardy should be.
So I'm wondering, like, going back to when you were a contestant, at what point did you realize that you were the best Jeopardy player, or at least one of the best Jeopardy players of all time? Like, was it game 15? Was it game 40? Was it like years after your streak was over and no one had even come close to beating it that you were like, oh, I really cooked?
Okay, let me make two things clear. One is that there's a lot of luck in a game of Jeopardy, and there are maybe, I think I went back and looked once, just for the math. And there's about a dozen games in my run where if one clue goes another way, I actually lose that game, including my first game. Like I'm one clue away from being a 0-game Jeopardy champion, and presumably you guys have a more interesting speaker in the 10 a.m. slot. But like for whatever reason, a few breaks went my way. And then I guess the other thing to say, and so the implication of that is that on any given night, you know, it's unclear who the best Jeopardy player was. Like I would come back for tournaments and get beaten time and time again by the pride of Lancaster, Pennsylvania, Brad Rutter, amazing Jeopardy player who just really had my number during tournaments. And also I never thought that my goal coming in was just not to be negative at the end of Double Jeopardy, because you know how people just disappear from the stage during final. I did not want to be like, Argentina Dirty Ward during Final Jeopardy and just disappear. So that was really my only expectation. To this day, I think it's weird that it happened.
Well, we actually have a clip of that first Final Jeopardy, which I would love to watch if you're down.
I love looking at my weird eyebrowless younger self.
That's exactly what we're going to do. Please roll the first Jeopardy clip.
And she's still going strong. Jerry Harvey, we start with you. What did you put down? Which athlete did you think of? Marion Jones, you are correct. And you add $1. You go to 7,401. Let's go to Julia Lazarus. Did she come up with Marion Jones? She's shaking her head. Why? She was going for somebody else, and I can't figure out who. Gail?
I can't figure out who either.
Oh, but somebody named Gail. Every girl named Gail watching the program today is going to be very happy. You lost $37.99. That drops you down to $14,801. Let's go to Ken Jennings. And even 20 grand going into final. Who is Jones? And we will accept that in terms of female athletes. There aren't that many. And you've got $17,201 more for a $37,201 total. And you become the Jeopardy champion.
I was like weirdly nervous watching that, even though I knew the outcome. I think it's the music.
It's the music, yeah.
How do you feel watching that?
I always think, when I see clips of me on Jeopardy, I always think, boy, that guy's dressed very badly. It's like the de-aged version of me from the beginning of the Marvel movie, you know? Like, look at that weird, smooth-skinned guy. I think S.H.I.E.L.D. is about to take his lab or something. And there I always think about how close it came. You know, Alex pauses for a second and looks over at the judges, and that's when you realize this very fast, oh, what if Marion Jones is right, but they don't take Jones because there was some other track and field star named Jones that I'm not thinking of. And I suddenly realized I'm going to lose this just because I didn't write Marion. And then I just remember the wave of euphoria. Because the thing, when you go on Jeopardy, you're terrified that you're going to go viral. Like, that's what people are worried about today. But like one win is enough because you're like, oh, I did it. I went through this gauntlet and I'm a Jeopardy champion. And they can't take that away from you. And I kind of felt like for the rest of the run, I was like, well, that's enough. I'm already a Jeopardy champion. Everything else is kind of gravy at that point.
So you mentioned kind of cringing at the way that you used to dress on the show. But I have to say, that's like the charm of Jeopardy. I mean, it's Jeopardy, not like America's Next Top Model. And it's kind of amazing that you have this show that is so exciting to watch, and yet the contestants are teachers and librarians and grad students and software engineers. Like, those are some of the most common professions, I think, of people on the show. And so, you know, my question is, is it possible for someone to be too nerdy to come on Jeopardy? Like, I know that there's an initial test that you have to take to qualify, and then after that there's an in-person component, and so I'm wondering, like, what actually happens in that audition process after you pass the Jeopardy test.
We do assign everybody a nerdiness quotient, or NQ, this is a little bit above my pay grade. I mean, obviously I got on, so the mark of whatever telegenicness is not super high. But I think in the past, one of the reasons why we have that in-person portion is just to try to get a sense of who will excel once they're on TV. You know, you've taken a very hard written test to get on the show. Weirdly, that is not a perfect Venn diagram circle with being good TV, you know, like being able to answer very hard trivia questions, not actually a good proxy for who's great on TV. So we just want people who can kind of walk and chew gum at the same time, who will be able to keep up with the game and hopefully not kind of go deer in the headlights. I think for a while, maybe there was a sense of, you know, this person might actually be not a good fit for Jeopardy, even though their test scores are very good. And now I think there's much more of a sense of, let's just put the best people on. Because as you say, the charm of Jeopardy is it's kind of a throwback to regular people being on TV without any sense that they've been glammed up that much or are doing, because reality shows are not like that anymore. Even though there's more real people on TV than ever before, they're not themselves.
That's for sure. So, I mean, if part of the process is figuring out who will be able to kind of swing it on TV, I mean, you don't really know until the person is actually on the show, right? Like, even if there's a practice round or something that's not the same as...
And there is.
Yeah, and so, I mean, has anyone ever, like, freaked out?
Yeah, it's extremely intense to be on Jeopardy. We think of it as calming, almost ritualized entertainment. This is the thing that's on at 7 o'clock, and it always goes and sounds exactly like this. And if I went back in time, this is exactly how it would be in 2005 or 1985. But in fact, when you're there, it's extremely tense. It feels like a blood sport, because you've never been on TV before, in almost every case. So people are kind of nervous, and it feels surreal. You're a little bit out of your body. And then the game just moves so fast, and it's so high pressure, and everybody else is so smart. It is an intimidating thing, and people are going through big feelings out there, even though they look calm every night. So please, like, spare your most charitable thoughts for the Jeopardy contestants every night who are really putting themselves out there and who are probably really going through some stuff while you're watching. It's a big ask. And so we do occasionally I have seen tears, I have seen borderline panic attacks. The other day, somebody was holding onto the lectern and might have passed out if they hadn't been holding onto the lectern very hard. It's intense out there.
You don't see that part on TV, though, so do you, like, re-record? Do you, like, stop and then let the person come back after their panic attack, or does the round restart? Like, how do you deal with that, like, if a contestant can no longer function during the recording? Interestingly,
whatever those moments are, they almost always happen off camera. They happen during the break. Like, the pull of the Jeopardy game, or the propulsion of a game of Jeopardy is so strong for people who know the show well, as I assume many of you do, that you can drop people into it and they can kind of go on autopilot. And then during the commercial, that's when they're like, what just happened? I'm up by 3,000, or I'm down by 6,000, or that's when they kind of have the alien abduction is over, and they're like, but we've all grown up on Jeopardy, and so people can kind of do it, and it's just an amazing thing to watch.
You mentioned in Brainiac, your book published in 2006. I should also mention that Ken is a New York Times best-selling author of many books. You mentioned in the book that there was, at least at that time, there was a long backlog of men who would qualified for the show through their test, but hadn't been on yet. But there were fewer women. Like, you noticed that women were getting faster callback times, ostensibly because there were fewer women trying to get on the show. Is this still the case? And are there other patterns you've noticed, like whether it's gender or like a certain kind of, like, do you have too many attorneys? Like,
that's always true, I think. It's actually gotten a lot better. The big sea change for Jeopardy, and this kind of predates my time, is, when I tried out for the show, I had to I had to, I don't know, I had to wait. You had to wait for Jeopardy to come to your town, go to the mall, do a little questionnaire, and then be invited back. Or in my case, a friend and I drove down to LA just to show up at the Radisson and try out for Jeopardy. And this self-selects, as you can imagine, for a certain kind of very confident trivia kind of person. And so what you get is like too many, like proportionally, you get too many white men trying out for Jeopardy, because that's the kind of person who watches Jeopardy and thinks, yeah, you know. Like, you know, when you poll, like, how many men think they could take a point from Serena Williams, you know, and you can get 35% of men to be like, when in fact the real answer is no. So I think because of how that worked, you would get people who assumed they were good at trivia, and then you got more men than women trying out, because just the kind of the imposter syndrome of, you know, all the things that come with our culture about, you know, performing as a woman in a high pressure environment like that. And when we moved the test to online, just lowered some barriers to entry, like that turned out to be great. It did not solve the problem, but we now have women trying out at a greater percentage, people of color trying out at a greater percentage than before. It hasn't like solved the problem we have of like wanting Jeopardy to look more like America, but it went a long way.
It's also easier to study for Jeopardy now, right?
It's a whole different era. Like when I was on the show, like those three people you see, they're just kind of like people who did it as a lark. Like, we like Jeopardy. Our friends say that we should go on. It was the kind of the older guy at the end was, I remember he was from LA, just kind of a spry senior citizen that used to run the steps at the LA Coliseum every morning. So like the whole, I don't know, like the USC track team was there to cheer him on or something. And the woman in the end actually worked for the Roundabout Theater here in New York and later got us house seats to Sondheim's Assassins. So like, despite having like had to play me on Jeopardy, like what a lovely person. Maybe she was like, give Ken the bad seats. I don't know. But these are just normal people. And today, increasingly, we're in a Moneyball era of Jeopardy where people do train for years to be on the show. I know people who have essentially built simulators at home the way a pilot might. People who have their own buzzer lineups, people who build that, you know, people who write their own software to barrage them with Jeopardy clues, people who do study the math, the game theory of the wagering. It's been professionalized, and of course the strategies have changed, just as in Moneyball baseball. You mentioned Holzhauer looking for daily doubles. The strategies are very different today.
Yeah, I want to ask you a lot more about the strategies. So yeah, there's like the looking for the, so actually, I guess going back, like, so this strategy of hunting for the daily doubles, that's something that we often associate with Holzhauer, who used it so successfully. But I feel like the first time that I noticed it happening was in the game that you and Brad Rutter played against Watson, the IBM supercomputer, which, you know, seemed to be on the prowl for the daily doubles, and then you guys kind of had to do the same thing in order to compete with it. I mean, do you trace some of those strategies back to the Watson game?
When IBM programmed Watson, they interviewed a lot of Jeopardy contestants with ideas on strategy and so forth. And I think, so a lot of those ideas actually came from humans to Watson back to humans, just like AI is taking human work today and then using it to put humans out of work. And I think that came from, I mean, people have been jumping around the board since the 80s. That was a player named Chuck Forrest who thought he could.
Bounce, right?
The Forrest bounce. And it wasn't to look for daily doubles, it was to keep your opponents a little off balance. Like if they're still thinking about opera and you hop to 9-letter words, maybe they're going to forget that they're looking for a 9-letter word. And then there were players like Arthur Chu who specifically were looking for daily doubles. And that's the game changer there. Just probability-wise, you want to put the game away as early as possible, because I think historically, players are about 50% conversion on Final Jeopardy. And that's just a lot of uncertainty. You don't want a 50% chance of winning at that point. If you can lock up the game before Final Jeopardy, you do it. And historically, daily double conversion is much higher. I'm sure for some players, it's upwards of 80%, in fact. So that's why you see players just laser focused on those daily doubles and then making what seem to be like crazy, cartoonishly big wagers, because they know that's the moment to try to put the game away. And occasionally, you'll see a big risk go awry, but it's just like poker, it's still the right way to play.
So when you were competing on the show, you played a pretty normal, chill game.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, like it didn't seem like you were employing like some crazy strategy. It seemed like you were just trying to, answer as many clues correctly as you could. But you've had to change your strategy over time when you've like gone up against players like Holzhauer. So what is it like playing that more aggressive style? Like, does it feel comfortable?
No, I still find it very uncomfortable. At the time when I was first on, it was not a choice. Everyone played that way, like, oh boy, let's take around the house for 200, Alex, and they would march consecutively through a category. If I know Jeopardy viewers, many of you miss those peaceful, reassuring days of orderly movement down the board.
Well, also there are clues in the earlier questions that help you understand the harder ones. Like,
yes.
It makes sense to go that way.
That's what the show aesthetically prefers people to go down the board, and the contestant producers will still say, there's advantages there. You may want to get a better sense of the vibes of a category before you move to the harder stuff. But players know that really what counterbalances all that is whoever finds the daily doubles first is more likely to win. It's like controlling Australia in Risk or something. Like, he or she who gets the daily doubles, rules the world. So that's why you have players actually making heat maps of where on the board the daily doubles tend to be historically over time. They are placed by humans, so it's not a random effect. For whatever reason, there are certain, not just rows, but columns that are more likely to have the daily doubles than others, and good players have done the research on that.
Have you thought about randomizing them?
The problem with randomizing is there's a kind of clue that is a daily double. Like aesthetically, when we're looking for a daily double, there's a sense of what's a clue here that the players benefit by having a few extra seconds, that the audience benefits by having a few extra seconds. There's a bit of deduction maybe involved, or combining multiple pieces of information, some bit of mental work to do. That's a good daily double. If it's something where you just look at it and you're like, oh, that's easy, that's Mahler, everybody knows that, whatever, a simple linkage of fact, that's not a good daily double. And so for whatever reason, that tends to be in a certain part of the board.
No, I love the daily doubles. I feel like it's kind of the only time on television where you can see someone's brain working in real time.
The other day, I needed a wager, and it was kind of a tense situation. And the person was like, do you guys edit this out? Can I think for a while? And I was like, no, we need a wager.
I'm wondering if you can speak to the kind of intelligence that Jeopardy selects for or suggests. Like, I think, you're obviously someone who has incredibly deep knowledge, and this is clear from the books you've written and just, the fact that you have a demonstrated curiosity about so many things. But when you read about how people prepare for Jeopardy, and especially like the concept of Pavlov's, like the idea that if you see British University mentioned in a clue, it's most likely going to be Cambridge or Oxford, and like you can just study for the game that way.
And sometimes it's a lock, Norwegian composer is always Edvard Grieg. There's some of these where you just need to know that.
Yeah, and so like if part of the game is just kind of learning those associations, then it does make me wonder whether really deep knowledge is a requisite for success. Like, it's not like the contestants might know what year this war happened in, but would they be able to write an essay on the war?
They would not. In general, Jeopardy is a game for generalists. And to me, that's kind of the beauty of it, because we live in an age of specialists. People get in these very deep career silos, or even like avocational silos. People really are like, well, I like this kind of jazz, but not that kind. Or I follow the American League, but not the National League. Even our hobbies are very specialized and kind of isolating in a way. Jeopardy is from a different time when we had this idea that cultural literacy united people, and so you would know a little about everything. And there's a couple effects of that. One is that shallow knowledge performs pretty well on Jeopardy. For whatever, and I don't want to say like these are not Rain Man-style savants that just learned a series of facts. Like, these are, in general, curious, engaged people who know that stuff because it interests them. In fact, the reason why they're generalists is because everything interests them. Like, in the same way that you don't have to study the lyrics of a song you like or the roster of the team you like, if you're interested in everything, facts just stick in your head. You don't have a photographic memory, but you kind of do, because everything, you're curious enough about everything that the facts just stick. But the other corollary of that, I guess, is that, I don't know, which of two ways was I going to go with this? I guess the other corollary of that is that, like, it's kind of a hopeful thing, I think, that, like, it makes me kind of miss a time when we were united by a broader culture. You know, not that necessarily we need to go back to a monoculture of 3 networks. Like, there were certainly some downsides to that. Like, representation-wise, it was terrible. But there was a sense of what people knew and what your coworkers would know and what your friends would know just about the world. And as we get into kind of lower information voter times, honestly, I'm nostalgic for a time when you kind of assumed that we were all held together by this common culture. And Jeopardy maybe is the last, like, kind of the last bulwark of it, but we're proud of that.
I mean, how do you ensure that during a time when facts themselves are becoming so politicized? I mean, you're probably not going to have a Jeopardy clue that's like the winner of the presidential election in 2020. But I mean, are you on the lookout for, you know, situations where, I mean, is it just a matter of accepting both what is the Gulf of Mexico and what is the Gulf of America as the right answer to a clue? Or like, how do you kind of ensure that politics doesn't get in the way of like our last apolitical, you know, beloved cultural institution?
I mean, this has never come up before. For decades and decades of Jeopardy, Republican and Democratic administrations, the show is weirdly universally popular. It's popular in red states and blue states, young people and old people. Somehow I think it just kind of got grandfathered in before the culture wars reached like Kulturkampf levels. And so this is the first time we're actually having to think about that. You know, we would have to accept Gulf of America, I think. That's, you know, our rule is like, do media outlets use this word? And that's now an alternative answer. I don't think that player would endear themselves to the home audience with their Gulf of America response. But certainly Jeopardy is still a place where facts do matter. And if we ask a question about the moon landing, we would not accept, what is that didn't happen, you know, or... Or if it's a question about mRNA vaccines, you know, you can't just buzz in and say, what are Bill Gates' microchips? Or, you know, like facts do matter on Jeopardy. But it's a hopeful sign to me that it is still this broadly watched show where for 30 minutes a night, nationwide, people do kind of accept, oh yeah, it's not just whatever the awful man says. Like, there actually are, these are questions that have correct and incorrect answers. And maybe I'm deluding myself, but it seems like a sign that we could get back to that society at some point.
So on the subject of politics, in 2004...
That's good. No, I want more of this pandering New Yorker applause.
I think you're about to get some more once you hear the question. In 2004, you said that year, so this was after your incredible win streak. You mentioned that Chuck Schumer and Harry Reid both called you and tried to get you to run for Orrin Hatch's Senate seat in Utah.
True story.
Can you tell us a little more about that?
I mean, that's kind of the story right there. I mean, as you might remember, then and now Utah politics, the Democratic candidate was always a sacrificial lamb of some kind. But I got invited to speak at a thing in D.C., an alumni thing in D.C., and it was a different bipartisan time, and so Senator Hatch was there, but so was Harry Reid, who ended up introducing me at dinner, and you know, lovely guy. And later, I got an email from his office saying that then Minority Leader Schumer, Minority Whip Schumer probably, if Reid was still there, wanted to call me and had a question for me, and the question was, would you run for office? This is not, I like to see this as a sign of, if not personal merit, at least Jeopardy's great cultural bona fides. But really, it's probably more a story about the thin Democratic bench in the state of Utah in 2004. Like, maybe this guy will get some national headlines, some fundraising, some help for down ballot races if there's a celebrity on the ballot. So I'm a little cynical about that, but I did not think about it for very long. My wife's here. She will know that I thought about this for about 10 minutes before I said, no, you know, I've already kind of done enough interesting things to my family. I'm not going to ruin my family's lives by going into politics.
What were your plans for your kind of like post-Jeopardy life? Because obviously it took many years for you to then return to the show in a more formal capacity. And so, I mean, I think I read that you kept your job as a software engineer.
For years, yeah.
For years. Even though in your book you mentioned that you were a mediocre software engineer.
At best.
I don't believe that.
No, it's true. I wish I could show you my code. I had been a computer science major in college. I'd actually been an English major, and at some point, that's what I loved. And at some point, I loved to write, but somebody told me the joke, which some of you might have heard, which is what's the difference between an English major and a large pepperoni pizza? Anybody know this one? The pizza can feed a family of 4. And at that point, I made sure I had a computer double major, and so I graduated right at the height of that first kind of .com boom. A lot of my friends had dropped out of school to join startups, so I got a job very easily. But it turned out I was not a very good or happy computer programmer. So here I am, like in my mid to late 20s, having this very early midlife crisis, basically, of what have I done? I'd gotten married in my mid 20s, so I'd come home from work every day, just a little bit glum about what a crappy programmer I was, and just tell my wife, hey, I think I'm going to apply to law school, or I'm going to take the foreign service exam. She will often remind me all these weird ideas I had. And honestly, I'm going to go on a game show was not one of them. That was kind of an unlooked for thing. But the thing to remember is I always thought it was going to go away. It's funny now, 20 odd years later, to be like, well, he's the host of Jeopardy. There's clearly a narrative arc here. But at the time, we were just waiting for it to end. Like, boy, what a crazy summer we're having. Dad's still on Jeopardy. At some point, somebody asked us, do you think you're going to get recognized on the street? And I just laughed. I was like, no. Can you imagine recognizing somebody on the street because they were on Jeopardy? Today, it doesn't seem weird. Of course, I would recognize Amy Schneider or James Holzhauer, but at the time, no, you would not recognize somebody because they were on Jeopardy. My idea was maybe at Costco, because that person could see your name and your face. So my wife and I had this bet. The over-under was 10. I would get recognized 10 times at Costco. But that's just a sign that we thought the whole thing was going to go away, and then we'd have a normal life. And then it just kept not happening.
Yeah, my favorite fact about that period is that when your run was airing, you became so famous and known as Ken Jennings that even your son, who was 2 at the time, started calling you Ken Jennings. Does he just call you Dad now? Or?
He called me Daddy before. He calls me Dad now. But that summer, when Johnny Gilbert was saying Ken Jennings, he just started calling me Ken Jennings. Always the whole thing, like Charlie Brown. It's unclear why.
I'm wondering if you can talk a bit about your relationship with Alex Trebek. I know that when you were competing on the show, you weren't able to really talk to him much at all because of all the FCC rules.
There's still regulations, yeah. I mean, left over from the scandals of the 50s. So going on a game show today is still very strict. Like, contestants can kind of get sequestered like a jury, trooped around together almost like a chain gang. If one person has to pee, everybody gets a bathroom break. Just to eliminate any possible optics of like, oh, the show is skewed in favor of Marcy, or that must be where they gave Dan the answers, or whatever. Like that, it just can't happen. Like, there would be congressional hearings and jail sentences if a game show were rigged today. And so as a result, you never hang out with the host. Like, we would see Alex at the top of the show, the same time the home viewers saw him. And occasionally I would run into him over the years. But like the whole time you're just kind of seeing him as, I don't know if we kind of have this idea, after we lost Alex, we kind of thought of him as, America's grandpa or smart uncle or something, and Canada's, for crying out loud. But at the time, some of you may remember more accurately, he had a little bit of a brittle quality on stage. Like, he liked to be stern. Sometimes he was perceived as smug when he corrected people. He had the very good accent in every language, which I do not have. I'm so jealous of all of Alex's hosting toolbox. He was so good. But the whole time I'm a contestant, I'm like, does this guy like me, or is he like kind of fed up? Because he would always just be a little like, a little disapproving, that kind of, that kind of Alex Trebek, well, I don't know about this persona. And on my last show when I lost, he actually came back out after the game. He was in his shirt sleeves, which you never You never see Alex out of a jacket. It was like, ugh.
I can't even imagine that.
It's like seeing your parents naked. You can't imagine. You don't want to see Alex in a. He looks good though. And he was like moved. He was like, oh, Ken, we're gonna miss you around here. And I was like, I didn't know. Like all this time, Alex didn't dislike me. Like what? I was genuinely touched by that. So it was mostly just admiration of his hosting ability. And the only reason I can kind of keep my head above water hosting today is because I saw him do it for so many years, including up close. Just phenomenal. Like he was made for it.
Did he ever talk to you about potentially hosting the show in the future?
Yeah, sometimes he would joke about it. Because over the years, people would ask me, hey, when Alex retires, and I would say, no, it's not going to happen. Every broadcaster wants this job. After he got sick, I was consulting on the show at the time, and I talked to him a few times about it, including, although we didn't know this, the weekend he passed away, I was supposed to come in and rehearse, and it got canceled because he had passed away that evening, the night before. And nobody knew it was, like we knew he was going to start another round of chemo, so I had been enlisted to guest host a little bit, but we were all sure he would come back. He had rallied so many times. And I talked to him on the phone, and his voice was not the same, but he still sounded like Alex. And one of the things I remember him saying, he like thanked me. He was like, "Boy, Ken, thanks for filling in. Like this is," and I was like, I was gonna bawl. I was like, "Alex, no, like we should be thanking you. Are you kidding? Like 37 years." He always believed the host was not the star of Jeopardy. Art Fleming had been announced as the star of Jeopardy. That was game show. Typical game show practice. And Alex said, no. The players are the star. The clues are the star. The focus of Jeopardy should never be on the host. And he was 100% right, and I don't know if any other host would have got to that conclusion, just because that's not the way show business works. Less of me, please. But he was right.
I mean, there are theories that he kind of had you in mind for a while to host. We actually have a clip of an interview segment from 2014 when you returned to the show to compete in a tournament. If we can roll the Trebek clip.
Now, because of the 74 games you have won and all the other games in which you have participated, do you think there's the advantage of being an intimidating factor for these others?
I hope not, because everybody here is so good. It's a very different, I notice a huge difference coming back to play tournaments, because everybody's so good. But, I've been behind this podium a lot, and I feel really at home here, so I get that.
How would you feel well, no, we won't talk about it. We won't talk about it.
That seems pretty pointed, right?
At the time, I thought that was weird. It was so clear to me for years that you would never get an ex-contestant to host Jeopardy. With all the lack of charisma that a Jeopardy contestant brings with them, why would you do that? And I'm a little bit surprised. It's a very unconventional thing. I guess the question is, can you take a great broadcaster and teach them Jeopardy? Can you take a Jeopardy contestant and teach them the broadcasting angle? They both seem like a bit of an uphill climb, I guess. And so it was a difficult task when Alex passed away. But I feel very lucky. Like I feel like the good little boy that won the chocolate factory somehow. Like all the other guest hosts got sucked up into the chocolate pipes or whatever, and like Dr. Oz or Aaron Rodgers are still up there somewhere. It was just always my favorite thing. Jeopardy was my favorite thing as a kid, and it meant so much to me. Like a safe space where smart people knew stuff, and it was clear that was a thing. Like you could be this kind of grown-up. And as a kid who was like, I think I'm the only one that goes home and reads the Leonard Maltin movie guide for fun. Like that was such a big moment to have Alex create that safe space on TV. And so to like now be on my favorite show, I just learned the word pronoia. Do you know this word pronoia, Tyler?
Never heard of it.
It's the opposite of paranoia. Pronoia is the conspiracy theory belief that the universe is conspiring on your behalf. And boy, what an irritating thing to hear someone say that. Boy, why does everything keep working out for me? But I just feel so lucky. Like I get to work at my favorite place and host my favorite show, and I take it seriously because I think Jeopardy does still mean that to the nerds of tomorrow.
So I'm getting a lot of audience questions, as you would imagine. So I'm going to start reading some of those. Okay, so the first one mentions the amazing Jeopardy moment where you answered with "What is a hoe?" The, the clue being, what was it? This term for a long-handed gardening tool can also be a moral pleasure seeker.
That's exactly it.
Okay.
Wow.
I did my research. I didn't want to be
Closet Jeopardy superfan.
And so the right answer was "What is a rake?" You gave "What is a hoe?"
Supposed to be "What is a rake?" Yeah.
and the but this question asks, do you think that Jeopardy clues are written to elicit wrong answers that are really funny, or will the contestants embarrass themselves with no help?
I was so sure that that was a trap. Like, because who would see this long-handled garden instrument is also a pleasure seeker and not say, hey, what if someone says ho here? But apparently they did not. Like, our two current head writers, Billy and Michelle, were both on staff when that happened. And I now see the Jeopardy ethos is not to try to trap people. And the players think it is. Like, the players are like, oh, because Jeopardy clues are difficult, they're dense, they're kind of in their own weird little kind of dialect that's not quite English, full of red herrings and misdirection and little references. So it is its own complicated thing. But there are never traps. We know that the game works when we elicit correct responses the most direct way possible. Otherwise, you get a lot of like this, standing and staring, and that's bad TV. So no, there are no traps on Jeopardy. That said, I still feel like they owe me $200 or whatever that was.
Do you have a favorite ever Jeopardy clue?
I mean, that's the one I see the most, for sure.
One that's just really clever.
I really should have. They go so fast is the problem. 61 in a game. Even if there's one you admire at home, the players, it's just washing over you. The game seems to last about 5 minutes. You find yourself the night after, and we do 5 in a day. So it's a full week of shows in a day. And that night you kind of find yourself lying in bed and the games kind of unpack and unspool in your head in some kind of weird kind of Timothy Leary way. And so I don't know if there's one clue. I remember the emotional response of the first win, Marion Jones. And I remember, by the way, when they took away her medals, I was like, are they going to take away my... And then the last clue you remember, the one you get wrong. I remember in John McCain's obituary, they mentioned that he was always just grousing for the rest of his life about what is Ecuador or whatever the final Jeopardy clue he got wrong in the 70s.
I mean, in your case, with the H&R Block thing, didn't you get free tax services from them for forever?
In my case, it was like this white-collar firm hires most of its employees for just a few months out of the year. I assumed it was holiday season. It was not. It was tax season, H&R Block. But yeah, they offered me free financial services for life. I wrote down FedEx, and they ran an ad where it was like, the only time FedEx has ever been the wrong answer. So if you're going to lose on Jeopardy, lose on the corporate question. If you get what is Ecuador wrong, you're not seeing a penny.
What puzzle games do you play every day, and in what order?
I just got the limited edition hat. I don't mean to brag. Limited edition hat for the New Yorker crossword, apparently represented by a monkey. I didn't know this.
Is it an owl?
Oh, it's an owl. It's an owl. Thank you. There we go. A little smart owl coming out of a crossword egg. And I do the New Yorker crossword every week. I would say...
you were a clue in the New York Times mini crossword yesterday.
Like yesterday?
Yeah. The answer was Ken.
Yeah, it was Jeopardy host Jennings. That's how to get 20 people to immediately text you a link to the New York mini crossword. It happens on Jeopardy. When people are mentioned on Jeopardy clues, that's when, no matter how famous they are, their phone will blow up, and it's like, you're on Jeopardy tonight. I do the spelling bee every day, the New York Times spelling bee every day. I'm always trying to get to Queen Bee, the unannounced perfect score level. My wife and I generally do Times connections over dinner. Those are the main ones, I would say.
Do you have a favorite depiction of Jeopardy in pop culture?
Favorite depiction of Jeopardy? White Men Can't Jump is hard to beat. Foods that start with Q. Rosie Perez. I like The Simpsons. In the Simpsons version, Marge winds up in the negative and Alex tries to collect. Alex has a couple Goombas with crowbars and tries to collect from Marge.
How involved are you in choosing the clues and shaping the questions?
We have an award-winning writing staff. It's like 8 or 10 writers, similar army of researchers, like New Yorker style, fact-checking every clue, double sourcing every fact in every clue. They do not need me kibitzing. But that said, over the years, Alex would occasionally like have an idea, like, what if we did this category? Or, I just saw this fact at a museum. Couldn't this be a Final Jeopardy? And I do the same thing. Like if I see something in the wild, there was something just yesterday, but I can't tell you. It might be on the show. The first time it happened, I was in the Old North Church in Boston, and there was a plaque for where Gerald Ford raised the third lantern. And I was like, for the bicentennial, I was like, oh, this could be a Final Jeopardy. Gerald Ford in this building raised the third lantern in 1976. And the writers agreed, and they put it on the show, and then nobody got it right. So I just felt guilty.
Who was your favorite super champion to watch or follow, either as a fan of the show or as a host?
As a kid, I guess, Chuck Forrest was the first time I saw somebody whose name I recognized. Like, this guy's clearly a step above the others. He's playing a whole different game. I had never seen that before. It was like very early, 85 or so. Eddie Tamanis was a blind sports writer from Chicago. Do you guys remember this? They gave him the categories in Braille, but except for that, he's like all on audio. He doesn't get the lights. He can't read along with the clue. He's just listening to Alex, and he was just phenomenal. 5-time undefeated champ. I've since met him, nicest guy in the world. Now that I'm a host, I can't have favorites anymore. Like Alex would often ask, and he would just say, anybody but Watson. Alex hated Watson.
Are you friends with anyone you played against?
Yeah, especially the people I played over and over against. I mentioned Julia getting me tickets to Assassins. That was lovely. Somebody in my 40th show came up to me at lunch, and he was a Seattle attorney, and he said, boy, I hope all the clues are about like Korea or the Mariners, because he was Korean American. And I said, oh, that's funny. I used to live in Korea for like 11 years. And, and so we kind of had a funny moment over lunch. And when we moved to Seattle, like we later became friends with them, and we now like go on vacation. I'm going to have dinner with him tomorrow when I'm in the city. So I have like a couple like real Jeopardy friends. The people I played over and over, like Brad and James, I know their families, and we hang out. It's not like the case of athletes who actually hate each other. I don't know who that would be. I don't know, like Bird and Magic, maybe. This is like people who really, or Ollie and Frazier, maybe. This is people who actually really like each other.
Is it a lot of shop talk when you guys are together? Like, what do you talk about with James Holzhauer?
James is actually kind of just a lovely family man who gives a lot of money, a lot of his Jeopardy. Like on TV, he plays a villain, but like all of his winnings are going to like these Vegas charities because he's kind of all about the community and public schools. And so we just like talk about his kids and stuff. I would say Jeopardy shop talk is boring even by shop talk standards.
So James is an example of someone who, he's a professional gambler, and he's able to take those skills and apply it to Jeopardy to, make a lot of money. Do you think that could work in the reverse, where it's like someone who's really good at Jeopardy or has, Jeopardy level knowledge who then can apply their knowledge to like the prediction markets or something? Like, is Jeopardy the best way to make a lot of money if you're super smart?
I think of the people on this stage, maybe, but I think I'm the outlier here. I don't want to say that, I don't want to convey the idea that being good at Jeopardy is the same as generalized intelligence. Yeah. It's clearly not. But for whatever reason, it often is a stand-in for it. Like, these are kind of lively, curious people with interesting intellects. Sometimes they do have the Mensa syndrome of like, if you're so smart, why do you not have a job? Why do you live with your mom? Like there is a little bit of that for some of these people, but often it is just like for whatever reason, maybe because the more things you know, the easier it is to know things, and then the faster your brain is working, the more facts you accumulate. So there's kind of this feedback cycle. So they do generally tend to be kind of bright, interesting people. I don't think I would use it to pick like talk show pundits or Utah Senate candidates, but it's not bad.
What's the weirdest strategy you've seen someone use on the show?
Weirdest strategy. There's a Jeopardy rule that you can continue to respond until the host rules against you. And that was just to avoid awkward situations of, I don't know, somebody being asked to repeat something and changing it, or I don't know. Like, we don't have the first thing out of your mouth is the response rule. We have you can tweak your answer until you get a quick no from Ken. But that does mean it does incentivize people who just like can game the system, you know? Like they can say, what is Mesopotamia? And if I don't look happy about it, they can just start yelling, Assyria, Sumeria, Babylonia, you know? And I've seen people try to work that a little bit. I don't recommend it. You don't want to annoy the host.
Do you see anyone? I mean, now I'm just like, I have like a cheater mentality, so I'm starting to think of strategies that people should use. And you can tell me if any of them would ever work. Has anyone ever tried like mumbling their answer so that they can't be penalized for incorrect pronunciation?
I feel like mumbling is too risky. You'd be more likely to know it and then get ruled against, because we are kind of strict about Jeopardy pronunciation. The metric is not, do I think that this person was saying love's labor's lost? Like, I actually have to hear every apostrophe S in love's labor's lost. Like if somebody were to say love's labor's lost or love's labor lost, I would have to rule against them. It's got to be a plausible spelling, a plausible pronunciation of the right spelling. Or in Final Jeopardy, a plausible spelling of the right pronunciation. Or I'm supposed to rule against them. And I feel mean, but I do.
What about buzzing in before you technically have figured out the answer?
That I think is pretty good Jeopardy play if you're a strong player.
Because you know it'll come to you eventually. It's just, you might need that extra second.
Because you're going to have 5 seconds. Like after you buzz in, there's kind of an eternity to dangle and try to come up with it. Or to kick the tires on the response you have in your head. And I think there is a thing where, you know, I wouldn't buzz just being like, yeah, I'll figure this out. Okay, what do we have here? But it's really more like, oh, something here looks familiar. Like there's some connection in my brain, some synapse that can do this. Some inherent sense of rightness. I don't have it on the tip of my tongue yet, but I think I will get there.
So we have like 30 seconds left, but I'm wondering if you want to do a very quick lightning round where all the answers are subjective. So,
I love a lightning round.
So let's do it where like I'll say the greatest magazine in America, and then you can say like what is the
Atlantic? New Yorker.
Yeah. I'll give that one to you. Okay, so a category that you'd like to see on Jeopardy more often.
What is 80s pro wrestling?
A category that should be eliminated permanently.
What is Tool Time, the long-handled garden instrument?
The best quiz show that isn't Jeopardy.
What is quiz show? What is Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? Yeah.
The best board game.
Best board game. What is Risk, actually? Big Risk fan.
Good answer. Most intimidating Jeopardy contestant who you played against.
Who is James Holzhauer? Or what is Watson?
I think we should end on Watson.
Everyone hates Watson equally.
Actually,
it brings us all together.
Maybe this one. Best way to kill or destroy Watson.
I actually went inside Watson. Like Watson's an RV. Only other Jeopardy player I've ever been inside, actually. So what is just like pour water on the servers? Like Watson's got a shocking kryptonite that no other Jeopardy player has. You can hydrate it to death.
Look, if there's one thing about Watson, he would have been a terrible Jeopardy host. So
Thank you. I believe this too. Thank you.
So we'll have to leave it there for today. Thank you so much, Ken, for being here with us.
This was so fun. Thank you, Tyler.